Yeah, so plus 44 when your heart stops beating. Why don't you kind of share your notes and thoughts that you had on this one?
Yeah, again, I can't recall exactly when I heard this. I do know it was later on. I probably heard, the single "When Your Heart Stops Beating." I was like, okay, this is okay, but it didn't really grab me. However, I really do like that song on this album. But the band's name refers to the international dialing code of the United Kingdom, the country where the duo first discussed the project. So I thought that was pretty cool. I always wondered what the meaning behind plus 44 was. The early recordings were largely electronic in nature, which again, it's not something. So after I read that, I went back and listened, and I could definitely hear it more. I don't know if it's just kind of the space or tone of the songs, but I could see how maybe they kind of built off of that. But the band's sound gradually took on a heavier tone as Hoppus and Barker purchased a studio in which to record this. And I think it was from one of the guys in the band Poison, or some kind of older rock band like that. So I don't know if just being in a studio like that was like, okay, we can't do an electronic record in this studio. There's been too much rock coming through here. So although it was anticipated by the music press, the band's debut did not match commercial expectations and received mixed reviews from the critics. The group toured worldwide through 2006 and 2007, including a summer slot on the Honda Civic Tour alongside Fall Out Boy. I don't remember, so with both of these bands, I don't really recall seeing or even really knowing that they toured. But I mean, apparently both those bands did tour a fair amount. I would have been interested to see these bands, especially if you had been a fan of Blink and saw them live and then saw one of these bands, because that can be a thing with side projects too, is if you've seen the original band and you go see the side project, you have expectations just based off of their other project. And so sometimes I remember that when I saw Chris Carrabba playing with Twin Forks.
Twin Forks.
So I hadn't seen Dashboard, but I mean I'd seen enough live stuff. So when I saw it, it was kind of like, okay, like I just would rather be seeing Dashboard songs instead of these ones.
Right.
Like it was okay, and there wasn't like a great crowd or anything. But anyways, just that kind of thing, right? It's like it kind of taints your view of something just because you're expecting them to be a different way or whatever. So.
Right. Did you see Twin Forks on the tour with Northcote?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I saw him twice, and the whole reason I originally went was because I was like, oh, he's gonna play some songs from Dashboard, which he always played, I think, at least one, but they were never like, both times I saw him, they were like, saw Twin Forks, they were never like the big Dashboard songs. Right. They were like some deep cut or whatever that kind of fit the sound he had going a little more. But I have a quick funny story. So on that tour with Northcote, we got there a little bit early, and because the venue we were going to is called the Starlight Room, and if you get there early enough, there's like kind of this upper level that you can stand on that everyone walks past as you go in, because it's like where the bar is or whatever. But they've got like a ledge that you can lean against, and sometimes there's bar stools, and you can see over top of everyone, right? So we wanted to get that spot, so we got there and we got that spot, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go over and look at some of the merch. And so I walk over to the merch table, and I was like, oh, there's the Northcote vinyl. Oh, there's Twin Forks vinyl. I should just get both. And so I'm like, hey, are you doing merch for both Twin Forks and Northcote? And as I look up, it's Chris Carrabba standing there at the merch table. And I'm like, oh, hey. I was like, can I get one of each? He's like, yeah, I guess I can do that. So I'm like, all right. So he like sells them to me, and I'm standing there, and he's like, this was kind of awkward. He's like, would you like me to sign it? I'm like,
you should.
All right.
Can you sign the Northcote one for me, please?
yeah. But I was like, all right, I guess so. So I like hand it to him. He signs. He's like, to David, thanks for the support or whatever. Heart, Chris Carrabba. I was like, so nice. Weird. So upstairs I've got a sign, like Chris Carrabba signed Twin Forks record. But I have gotten the chance to see Dashboard Confessional a couple of times since then, which is great because I hadn't before then, and I absolutely, grew up loving Dashboard. But just recently found out that the tour he was coming on up here that I was supposed to see him on, pre-COVID-19 stuff isn't being rescheduled. It just got refunded. So I was like, well, yep. Oh, well, what can you do? But plus 44. Oh, did you have any more thoughts on the record
a few,
before I cut you off?
So there was actually plans for a second plus Plus 44 album, but that was put on hold in 2008, and the group entered into an extended hiatus with the reunion of Blink in 2009. So I would have been curious to hear what that sounded like.
Right.
Well,
it would have sounded like Neighborhoods, because that's what came out after that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess that could be. I did notice another vocal thing on this one that Mark seems to do mostly all, if not all, the vocals on this. So even in the harmonies, I noticed. Which, I mean, I love his voice, and he harmonizes beautifully, and so I didn't mind that part. But just something I was listening to is like, oh, I wonder if that's just because none of the other guys could sing, or maybe it was a control thing, or just kind of whoever ended up being in the studio. But just one more quick thing is both of these were produced by Jerry Finn, who Blink had been working with for quite a while, and I wonder what the dynamic was of both these bands coming to him, maybe with that tension in there and kind of different dynamics going for different things. And I wonder if he ever kind of felt like he was kind of coming between the band, because he obviously would have had a good relationship with, all three of them, right, from doing 3 records prior to this. And so, that was an interesting tidbit.
And it's interesting because, so I guess before I get into that connection, what I think is kind of interesting, first and foremost, I always kind of wrote this album off as just Mark and Travis trying to create a subpar Blink-182 replacement. And, maybe that could have been a thing that I thought of Boxcar had these roles been reversed sort of deal, right? Like, Mark leaves and then Tom creates something, like if that were the case. But when Boxcar was happening, Blink-182 was still a thing, right? So it didn't feel like he was trying to recreate something. Whereas on this record, it felt like a subpar Blink-182 replacement, because it still felt, for the most part, especially since it came out after Untitled, that it still felt like a Blink record in a lot of ways, but it lacked the creativity that Tom brought, with those riffs and whatnot that he, as he's known for his guitar work, right? But turns out I don't think that was the case, and they actually did that. They created a subpar version of Blink-182 in recent years. That's a joke, because the Blink-182 now, I don't mind Blink-182 now, but in truth, I do like this record. It's definitely more for me of a record that has to grow on me than Boxcar did. Boxcar was an immediate sort of thing. Definitely. And I think there are things that kind of play into that with Boxcar. And one of the biggest things that kind of works against Plus 44 is that the production on this record doesn't make any sense to me. It's a major disappointment. Like, the guitars on this record are so weak.
Definitely.
And maybe that's what makes it feel, as I said earlier, like subpar, in a way that, the guitars, in Blink-182, the guitars hit hard. In Boxcar Racer, the guitars hit hard. And then you have Plus 44, and it just doesn't do that.
So do you think that was because the guitar players that they brought in maybe just didn't have that scale or ability, or because it was originally supposed to be electronic, they weren't really going for more of a rock sound? I don't know. Because when I do listen to it, it does, the guitars for sure are like a lot lighter and kind of
and I don't know
sounding.
It's interesting because, like, with Boxcar Racer, it's not like they're playing any standout lead riffs or anything like that, right? Like, I mean, there are guitar riffs on there that are great, but, like, again, they're all based kind of more in rhythm sort of stuff, right? And so I don't think it's necessarily a case where I'm like, oh, I don't think the guitar players were playing their parts well. I just think the guitars sound crappy. Like, they instead of adding to the production and to the mix, they just kind of take away for me, because when you expect the song to, like, hit, it never does, because they don't allow the guitars to do that. It's kind of this weird sort of thing, and maybe that is based in the fact that originally this was supposed to be an electronic sort of thing. I don't know, but let's get into the songs though. So I picked 2 on the last one, and you picked 1. You flipped it this time. You picked 2. I picked 1.